Welcome back to Zaka Stokvel Insights. This week, we're focusing on travel Stokvels. As we wrap up our discussion, expert Thabiso Masudubele shares his insights on how these Stokvels can continue evolving into sustainable business models with TyVision's guidance. Thabiso, before the break, we were just plucking out tips in which Stokvels can go about their planning and securing the best deals. Can you just touch on that?
I think what Stokvels need to do, and what we've seen a lot of them do, is strengthening their admin and their research capacities. I think in any business, there are loopholes for people who want to make a quick buck and they end up stealing money of Stokvels. I mean, we've read articles where so-called travel clubs or tour operators take the money of Stokvels and then they don't deliver on them getting to Durban. So what Stokvels need to do, they need, with their planning, what we essentially help Stokvels do is have a strong admin base. So within that admin, we do things like research. So the group would have to, in January, say, we'd like to go to Durban or we'd like to go to Cape Town. You then work backwards in your planning to say how much would that trip cost. So we'd say there's 20 people, we'd like to be based at the beach and we'd like to do X, Y, Z. We'd then work backwards on an admin basis and say this is how much the trip would cost you, A to Z. You then, from that amount that you have, you then work backwards and say if this is the total amount that's needed, this is the amount that you have to contribute specifically for this trip. So then at the beginning of the year already every member knows how much to contribute, because more often than not people contribute without having done what the calculations would be of what they need at the end of the year. And then you find that people have actually contributed less than what's required for traveling at the end of the year. And then when they go on that trip, you need an extra bulk amount of money. So what we help groups do is then say, these are the costs that are involved with that. And the research then says, these are the travel companies that you can trust. These are the costs that you have. The admin and all of that is filed. And then you make sure that you're dealing with reputable organizations. And so already in the first 3 months of getting into that program, people know that this is what we're working towards and the paperwork is set. So every contribution goes towards making sure that it will cover all the expenses that are given. And then obviously at the end of the year, once your admin throughout the year has been sorted, people then get to go on holiday without the stress of saying, will we not go? There's that peace of mind to say that there's someone who's assisting us administratively.
I think you just gave an idea on how you would create some sort of a strategy for Sisabhekile to be able to get those discounts. How would you then help them foster that relationship with local tourism boards?
That would then talk to the issue of looking at where the opportunities are. So for instance, you'll have national agencies that offer specials at particular moments within the season. So within the travel industry, within the hospitality industry, you've got things like peak season, off-peak season, and so on. So in the discussion and in the planning and in the research, all of those things would be involved to say, if you guys would like to travel in December, for instance, December is peak season. And so with peak season, the pricing for hotels and so on is a bit more expensive than in off-peak. So the options that you do have is to travel in during peak season, or you can also travel during off-peak season. You get to see the same things at the same time. And then once you've given people the options, and those options are also based on costs, people are then free to make a determination that we want to go during peak season because it's festive, we also want to enjoy. Or they can come back and say, actually, we can go at a period that it's off-peak because we're going to see the same tourist attractions anyway. But through the research process, we're able to table the different options that people would have. And that research is essentially where Stokvels fall short, because then they don't have the capacity to delve into the details of does that accommodation exist in Durban, and it's through no fault of their own. It's just an admin capacity issue, and I think that's the gap that we've almost said that's where we are able to help Stokvels make sure that their admin is in order and their planning is in order so that they meet the objectives.
Now, Sisabhekile does seem to be at a phase of growth. They have a strong appetite for growth. Now, if they choose to generate income by investing in their catering services and, going to more travel sites, how would you suggest they structure profit amongst the group? That's always the tricky part.
Before you even get to the profit, it's to look at the business itself, how they structure the business. Because a lot of groups, it entails things like opening a business account as a group. A lot of groups would open what's called a Stokvel account, and that's a transactional account. So is that the best account to use when you're trying to save to acquire assets as a group?
Why would that be a problem?
Because of the way that account is structured. So it's a transactional. So you're looking, let's say for instance, you're looking at saving. If you want to start a business, firstly you have to register with the CIPC, for instance, as a business to be able to trade. So they'd have to look at that to say, so they'd start a company to say, we are Sisabhekile Travel Stokvel, Sisabhekile Pty or Sisabhekile CC, registered as a company, and then open a business account. But they have to make sure that they're in a position to open that business account. So we'd suggest the first step is to say, what business are they looking to get into? Because remember, the bank charges with a business account, they differ with the savings account. So bank charges with business accounts are generally more. So you don't want to pay business account costs when you don't have a functioning business, which is what a lot of Stokvels have done. They've been very happy to say, we are starting this business, let's open a business account. And then 6 months later, they realize that, hey, we're paying those bank charges and nothing is coming in, but a lot is going out at the end of every month. And this means their contributions are being eaten by those charges. So we then come in and say, guys, what are the assets that you require to start this business? Let's start there. So you want to get into catering. The first thing that you need to do is to acquire those assets that you say you want. So perhaps much like you're saving to travel, you want to save towards acquiring those assets. We then say, how much do those assets cost? What are those assets? It's, gas stove, pots, plates, chairs, tents, whatever that package may be. We then put that, say, are these the things? Are you happy that these are the things that you need for your catering business? They say, right, these are the things that we need. We then say, here is a cost for these assets. This is what you'd have to pay. Argument's sake, let's say it's 50,000 rand. You then again work backwards again. Say to get to 50,000 rand, there's 20 of you. This is the amount that everyone has to contribute to reach that particular target. And then once that objective is met at the end of the year, we then help them to save that money. But they know they're saving it for a very specific purpose. At the end of the year, they have that money that they need. They then acquire their assets. Now they are going concern. Then the next step kicks in to say, how do we register this business that then has these assets? And then they can begin trading. And then they begin the marketing. We then assist them with doing flyers. And more often than not, with groups like this, they already have the idea. For instance, they were catering at Moses Mabhida Stadium. We then always encourage Stokvel to say, the idea is there. So if you're a catering business, you don't need to look very far. Start in your own locality, where there's a funeral, where there's a wedding. You can provide those services, and then they build on that. But once they get into the provision of those services, then they can start thinking about the necessary business account. And then we look at the different business account options that are there for them to take up. And then within a year, 2 years, depending on how the growth of their business goes, they then have a viable business, the profits of which the discussion then comes up around the profits. I think a lot of the time people think about profits before thinking about the hard work that has to go in. And so if you've got your eye on profit and you forget the admin and the hard work that goes in, you won't get to profit stage. You first have to start at the difficult stage of asset acquisition. You have to get the business, and that's the tough part. So
it basically comes down to discipline and consistency.
And admin, and strong admin, making sure that your books are in order, making sure that you've got the adequate discipline for every premium to be paid. Yeah.
Well, that's all we have for now. Remember, you can always reach out if your Stokvel or burial society needs more information on this broad topic. Our contact details will be on the screen below. Until next week, goodbye. This program is brought to you by TyVision Media, helping Stokvels and burial societies reach their goals.